Good afternoon. So I'm about to go for my first run in the Adidas Adizero Adios 7s. Not a Pro in there, just the regular Adios 7s. So these have a plastic torsion system in there, but no plate. Light Strike in the heel, Light Strike Pro in the forefoot. So this is designed to be a lightweight daily trainer that you could also use for some tempo work, maybe to race in as well. So I'm gonna give these a shot today, see how they do, and I'll let you know. The Adidas Adizero Adios 7 is 27 millimeters of stack height in the heel and 19 in the forefoot for an 8 millimeter drop. In my size, a men's size 12, it comes in at 9.19 ounces or 261 grams. It has a light and breathable upper with a low to the ground, firm and responsive ride. This shoe is much firmer and lower to the ground than a lot of the shoes I've been using recently, and it feels much better when you put some speed into it and take it up to tempo pace or faster. So I just did a 2-mile warm-up in exactly 16 minutes. So 8-minute mile pace in the Adios 7, and I gotta say, this is not an easy day shoe. I could tell that pretty much right away. It has that really tight-fitting race upper, much more firm than a lot of shoes I've been running in recently, with the standard EVA Light Strike in the rear. It's got the little bit bouncier, lighter Light Strike Pro in the forefoot. But at those lower paces, I relate this to one time I test drove a WRX STI in a stick shift. And for those of you who don't know, that's a performance car with, big wheels, low profile tires, a sporty suspension, and where I live there's a lot of traffic lights. So I put it in first gear, accelerate a little bit, back into neutral, stop at the light. Accelerate into first gear, back into neutral, stop at a light. And I just couldn't get the performance out of that car because I just was going from light to light. And in that situation, it's a terrible car because the suspension is built for racing. You feel every bump. You're shifting in and out of gear. It's just not a pleasant experience when you don't have a curvy road. So this shoe for easy day, not such a great experience. But what I'm expecting now is I'm gonna start turning it up for some intervals, and I'm expecting this to feel a whole lot better. So we'll see how it does once I put some faster pace into it, because right now it feels like a performance car where I just can't put the throttle down. So now I'm gonna put the throttle down. We'll see how it goes. Well, my prediction was correct. I just did 10 1-minute intervals with 1-minute recovery, and then did about 2 or 3 more miles at the end at easy pace to cool down. And what I said was right. Basically, once I turned up the pace in these, completely different shoe. Running easy miles, this shoe does not want to do it. It feels stiff and just kind of lifeless when you're running slow. But once I started picking up my cadence, landing on that forefoot and taking quicker steps, then the Light Strike Pro started to become much more responsive. The shoe kind of woke up and you could feel how light it is and how responsive it is. So I think this shoe would really be good for tempo runs, for intervals, for track work, but just like daily easy miles, I'm gonna wear a different shoe for that. The stiffness in it really doesn't feel good, and it doesn't feel lively at all at those lower paces. Light Strike and Light Strike Pro are also a little bit firmer foams to start with. They tend to sort of loosen up and feel a little bit more springy as you use them a bit too. So that may happen with this shoe as well. Also, it's basically freezing temperature right now, which may be affecting the firmness of the shoe somewhat. So I'm going to keep using these. I'm going to compare them to the Takumi Sen and the SL20 and see how they kind of stack up. But I think I have in my mind about where these fit against each other right now. We'll see if the data bears that out over time. So the Adidas Adizero Adios 7, another shoe with a lot of A's in it. Very long name on the side there. This is another one that has a very lightweight cellar mesh upper, similar to the Pro 3. You can see right through there. Has a very thin tongue. It is gusseted on the inside. This is a very narrow shoe. It really kind of comes to a point at the front here. So if someone has a wider foot, I think you should definitely go at least a half size up to give yourself a little bit more room in the toe box there. Also, the way this wraps around, it kind of makes it a little less flexible in the toe box. One of the big things about this shoe is that it has Light Strike in the heel and then Light Strike Pro in the forefoot. You can see that kind of continues around this side as well. The Light Strike in the heel is a very, very firm EVA. Like this, I can barely move at all. And then the Light Strike Pro is their lighter, bouncier foam that they put in their performance models. So this shoe is a combination of those two things. I wanted to compare it to two of its siblings here. This is the SL20.3 that has only Light Strike, no Light Strike Pro. And then the Takumi Sen, which has only Light Strike Pro the whole way through. So these are three very different shoes from Adidas. These two look very similar. If you put them side by side, they have a very similar profile. They're both on the narrow side. They both have a very lightweight Cellar mesh upper, a similar heel design as well. But there's a huge difference between these shoes. I did a test after I took these out for a fartlek run. Basically at easy pace, they felt not good at all. They're very firm. I'm hoping that with a few more runs, these will kind of loosen up for me a little bit and get a little bit more forgiving, but I don't really want to use these for a longer run or anything that's slow. When I'm doing faster paces, then the stiffness of the shoe and the Light Strike Pro really shows itself, and you get some benefit from that. They feel a lot better when you're running fast. I was able to get into the 6 minute and like low 5 paces when I was really trying to run fast in this shoe. And it also has a lot of Continental rubber on the outsole. This is going to be a very durable shoe. It should last a lot of miles. But I did a comparison where I ran 2 miles in each shoe. So I started with the SL20 and ended up doing 7:38 pace. So I was basically trying to do kind of like a little bit faster than easy pace, a little bit like tempo pace. So I settled into just kind of what felt comfortable without trying way too hard. So these ran 7:38 in 15 minutes and 19 seconds, 7:15 for the first mile and 8:01 for the second mile. The second mile is coming kind of back the same route, but it's uphill on the way back, so all of them are a little bit slower in the second mile. With the Adios 7, I averaged 7:39 pace, so 1 second slower than the SL20. 15:21 for the 2 miles, a 7:19 and a 7:58. So the first mile was a few seconds slower, second mile was a few seconds faster. So these were almost identical, over that 2 mile route. But then the one that really stood out again is the Takumi Sen, which just continues to kill it as a great tempo shoe. This one, the minute I put it on, I was like, oh, thank you. Because, this one's a little bit softer, but Adios Light Strike is really not a soft foam, and then this one is just so firm, having that Light Strike in the heel. Once I put on the pure Light Strike Pro, it just felt so great. I was moving much faster. I could immediately feel the difference, and I was like, okay, that's why we have super foams in shoes. So this one ended up running it in 15:02, so I did about 20 seconds faster than the other two shoes. 7:21 mile and then a 7:38. So my first mile was actually a little bit slower, which also makes sense since I was more tired. This was the end of the test. But then coming back up the hill, I managed to do 7:38, which was significantly faster. That's where I made up all the difference. So just comparing them side by side, this shoe just blows the other two away. It's interesting where you'll wear shoes and try them out and run for a certain amount of time and say, okay, this feels like this. And then on another day you wear another shoe and this one feels like that. But when you wear them right after each other, you can really feel the difference. And what really stood out to me was how phenomenal the Takumi Sen is again. This one is, passable. And this one has potential, at those higher paces, but it's very uncomfortable when you're running slow. So I feel like I'm probably going to have more use out of the SL20 than I am with the Adios 7, just because I can use this for more things. I can use this for daily miles. It is stiff enough and light enough that I can still use this for tempo work. It also has Continental rubber. It's a very grippy outsole. So I think this is actually kind of more versatile than the Adios 7, because this one I really only want to use for fast running. It doesn't feel good for slower paces. And then the Takumi Sen just destroys them both. So, if this was a straight up comparison, this one wins going away. But as far as the Adios 7 goes, this is kind of my first depression review. I'm hoping that I'll put some more miles in this shoe. That Light Strike will soften up a little bit, and it'll feel a little bit better for slower paces. But really, this one you can turn up the pace for those tempo runs. but this one feels so much better. You know, given the choice between the two, this one I would just throw it out the window and never use it again, and then use this one as much as possible. So we'll see how my final thoughts end up being on the shoe once I get more miles in it. I'll do an update, you know, once I run in it some more and see if it loosens up for me and I'm able to use it for more things. So again, it does feel good for tempo paces. But, you know, given the choice between these three, this is the one I would remove at this point. I'd rather have this one as a daily trainer. I'd rather have this one as a speed shoe, and this kind of fits in between, but this one does what this can do. It feels much better. So this is the winner, even though this wasn't really supposed to be a comparison. I just wanted to see how the three of these fared against each other. So this one, you know, buy it, wait, or second rate. I'm going to say wait on this one, but that also has been done already. There are discounts on this shoe right now. I would not pay full price for this shoe. I was not that impressed with it. For the full price, the list price of this shoe. At the discounted price, I got it for $65. It's phenomenal for that. But this is one that, you know, it's very narrow, it's very firm, it's very low to the ground, gives you kind of that old school racing flat feel. But if you're used to, you know, soft bouncy shoes like the Endorphin Speed and some of these other ones with the supercritical foam, this could be a harsh, that WRX STI was a good example. You know, racing suspension, big tires, you're going to feel every pothole in this thing. So if you like the road feel and you want to turn up the pace, this shoe can handle that, but it's not as great at everything else. I also just wanted to compare the weight of these Adidas shoes behind me and see how they all kind of fall in that lineup. Interestingly, this is one that I just got recently, the Terex Speed Ultra. This is Adidas's kind of race trail shoe. It has light strike in the front, which kind of wraps around and boosts in the heel. So I will have a review of these coming soon. But this one is the heaviest of the group. It weighs in at 10.71 ounces in a men's size 12. In my size though, that's still very light for a trail shoe. Trail shoes are often over 12 ounces and they just have more rubber, thicker midsole. So this is on the thin side for a trail shoe. So 10.72 is pretty light in my size. And then amazingly, the Adizero Prime X Strung, this one weighs in at 10.67 ounces. So this actually weighs less than this minimal little trail shoe for this giant hunk of shoe, and that's really down to that Light Strike Pro being such a lightweight material, and then obviously the strung upper being very light as well. So that's pretty impressive that this massive stack shoe actually weighs less than this trail shoe. The SL20.3 comes in at 9.54 ounces, so under 10 ounces, which again in a daily trainer is pretty light for my size. Then we go to, I believe this one is 9.19 ounces, and the Adios Pro 3 is 9.22 ounces. So again, that kind of shows a little bit what a difference the midsole foam and the outsole makes. These both have almost the same upper. They have that thin Cellar Mesh upper. This is the full stack of Light Strike Pro and the thinner Continental rubber, where this has the regular Light Strike in the heel and the much thicker rubber on there. So even though this shoe has a lot more stack in it, it's actually almost the same weight as this one, which is a feather in the cap for this one, you know, showing how light it is for the size of this shoe with the amount of stack that they can put in this, that it weighs about the same as this one is very impressive. And then the winner for weight is the Takumi Sen. This makes sense being almost the same profile as this one, you know, lower in stack than the Adios, but this also has that lighter Light Strike Pro. This one comes in at 8.24 ounces, which is one of the lightest shoes of all the ones that I have. So again, very impressed with Adidas's line overall. This year, I named them my brand of the year. These are two of my favorite shoes ever. That one's up there. This one's getting it done, you know, as a daily trainer. This one, we'll see. You know, we'll see where it ends up going as I put more miles in it. For now, I like it, but I don't love it. It's very good for fast paces, but not so good for easy paces. So that's all I have for today. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.